consoles and PCs have been fighting for decades. Exclusive games, graphics, performance. But what if I told you that in the end, both have evolved in exactly the same way? Almost like crabs. Yes. In nature, different species have evolved in completely different ways, yet many have ended up looking like crabs in a process called carcinization. And something very similar has happened with consoles and PCs. They took different paths, but today they're almost the same. But how is it possible that after so many generations, these two rival platforms have ended up being practically identical? And more importantly, what does this mean for the future? Well, stick around and I'll tell you all about it. To understand what's happening with consoles and PCs and what they have to do with crabs, we first need to talk a little about them. Crabs are fascinating animals. They can live in water or on land, move sideways quickly, and use their claws to defend themselves or catch food. Although they seem simple, their design is incredibly efficient. Over millions of years, several species that were not crabs ended up looking like crabs. This phenomenon is called carcinization, and it basically means that evolution found a design so efficient that different animals, even if they weren't related, evolved in a similar way. For example, this is a crab, this is a crustacean, and this is a hermit crab. At first glance, they might seem like they belong to the same species, like lions and tigers, right? But in reality, they are completely different animals. But why does this happen? Why do they all look alike? Well, because having a compact body, strong legs, and a hard shell is simply an effective solution for survival both in water and on land. Over many generations, other species that lived in the same environments as crabs, but were not crabs, started to resemble them. Those that developed similar characteristics had an advantage. They could find food more easily, move better, and avoid being eaten thanks to their shell. Over time, evolution shaped them until they ended up looking, well, like crabs. Evolution isn't linear, but when something works, many tend to adopt it. Keep that phrase in mind. And what does this have to do with consoles and PCs? Well, exactly the same thing. If we look at the past, consoles and PCs were very different. Each console had its own architecture and custom-designed chips specifically for gaming. The PlayStation 2, for example, used a processor called the Emotion Engine, while the GameCube had an IBM Power PC chip. These were completely different machines. These consoles had nothing in common with PCs. They didn't have a traditional multi-core processor, interchangeable RAM, or a dedicated graphics card. Instead, everything was integrated into custom chips, optimized for their purpose. Instead of relying on large amounts of RAM like a PC, they used cache memory and ultra-fast data buses to maximize performance with fewer resources. The software was designed specifically to take full advantage of this hardware without wasting power on unnecessary processes. Before consoles like the PS5 and Xbox Series X, which are practically disguised PCs, there was an important first step in this evolution: the 7th generation of consoles, like the PS3 and Xbox 360. The PS3, for example, used the Cell Broadband Engine, a processor that, although not x86, was a more complex design with multiple specialized cores, while the Xbox 360 had a triple-core IBM processor. These consoles already incorporated elements more common in PCs, like shared RAM between components. While they still weren't completely like PCs, they were moving away from the highly specialized architectures of previous generations and getting closer to a more standardized design. The real transformation came with the PS4 and Xbox One. With the PS4 and Xbox One, consoles took a radical turn. They abandoned their custom architectures and adopted x86 processors, the same architecture used in PCs. To put it in perspective, x86 processors are the ones found in Intel and AMD CPUs. Unlike the chips used in phones or tablets, which have completely different architectures. In fact, the processors in these consoles were from AMD, with integrated CPU and Radeon GPU units, delivering impressive performance for that generation. They also began incorporating SSD storage, significantly improving loading times and overall performance. Suddenly, consoles weren't just similar to PCs anymore. They were practically becoming PCs in disguise. and it doesn't stop there. Now we have consoles like the Steam Deck or the Asus ROG Ally, which are literally gaming PCs in a portable format. These consoles don't just share the same type of processors and components as a desktop PC, they've managed to pack all that power into a much more compact size. Even the Nintendo Switch, although using a different architecture, follows the same logic. A hybrid platform that combines the power of a PC with the portability and exclusivity of a console. In short, just like crustaceans evolved in different ways but ended up resembling crabs, consoles evolved on their own and ended up becoming PCs, just in a more accessible format designed specifically for the gamers. It's like the hermit crab. This crab doesn't have its own shell, so it embarks on a long search across the ocean for an empty shell it can use for protection. This way, it shields itself from predators without having to create a shell on its own. It's a simple but effective strategy. Similarly, consoles, just like the hermit crab, didn't create their own structure from scratch. Instead, they adopted PC components, like a shell, to offer gamers a powerful system without the complexity of building a full PC. They found their own way to survive and thrive, by using existing technology as their foundation. If this trend continues in a few years, there might not even be a difference between PC and console anymore. Cloud gaming services like Xbox Cloud Gaming or GeForce Now have been slowly gaining traction, even though they weren't very popular at first. These services allow you to play high-quality titles without needing powerful hardware. All you need is an internet connection and any device, whether it's a phone, a tablet, or a PC, and you can play. This completely removes the barrier between physical devices. Additionally, services like Game Pass are blurring the lines between consoles and PCs even more. Now you can start a game on your Xbox and continue it on your PC, or vice versa, without losing progress. This cross-device flexibility is making the distinction between console and PC less and less relevant. In nature, many species evolved to resemble crabs because it was the most effective way to survive. And in technology, we seem to be witnessing the same thing. Consoles and PCs took different paths, but they have ended up in practically the same place. Maybe in the future we won't argue about console versus PC anymore because they'll be the same thing. But I want to hear your opinion. What do you think? Do you believe consoles will disappear, or will there always be a difference? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. I read all comments, so leave one below. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.